trails?
Yep.
You know, are you interested in the Shan Shan property, maybe doing a trailhead there? And, you know, and then of course the Motherwell Trail that keeps you coming back.
Yeah, that's all right.
Good.
Yes. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, just
All right, I got one.
easy peasy.
Okay.
I got it cut and but mine is like I'm like a mushroom. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we all wish. You know? Actually, I'm finally at peace. Wow, good. You're not bad at all. I know how to do it now. It took me a long time to come. I actually like me shooting all those. Good. It's great. I saw Patrick. Do people call in and tell you when they're not coming?
I put in an email.
Huh?
I put in an email to know you said they weren't. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's your duty. As chairman.
I put it out there. I'm hoping that.
Oh, good. So this snake conversation is phenomenal. I know. And they're gonna do a safety demonstration and let people touch snakes and take people and like I know.
You were saying.
Yeah, like the same person.
And to get up
We
and
had those
describe
calls
some
with her.
projects. He did a really good job.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
he's been
Yeah.
I noticed that the commissioners in the business meeting approving like a restoration of
They're approving the
engineering
Yes,
matrix.
design, yes.
I mean, is there anything recreational
I don't email
anywhere?
as a human, but I always email like.
I caught it, I saw it, I'm not
Yeah.
involved with those meetings, I just hope that recreation is like
Like I always,
thrown out there, not that
people that are really.
I know it's mean, not designed, but it's just one of those things
Yeah.
that, you know, I do think
Yeah.
somewhere along that corridor, I don't know where that whole thing is at, whether it's authority or not,
Right.
that we could, you know, look at
Yes.
opening the chunk of stream up to fishing
Yep. He even said that at the
and picnicking, some sort of trail, really make it, you know, it's one of our goals.
Yep.
And, I really
That's
think
for him.
Right.
All right, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Got most of us here now. Before we jump to public comment, just wanted to welcome our new member, Ryan. Just want to say just quick something about yourself, and so that everybody.
Sure. We've been in Superior now for 3 years. We live in El Dorado Circle, so behind Safeway where that pond is there, back open to the trail there. Lived in Lafayette for 5 years before that, and Broomfield for 5 before that. Actually was born and raised in Colorado, so it's near and dear to my heart. Let's see, I work just right over in Louisville. Love to run, so I'm always out on these trails. So it's a great opportunity for me to give back to what I love, so glad to be here.
Perfect. Welcome.
Thanks.
And then just introductions from the rest of us. I'm Ken Lish, chair of OSAC.
Matt Morris, committee member.
Tracy Collar, member.
Sean Samuelson, member.
Okay, I don't think we have any public comments, so we'll go right on to our discussion/presentation with Boulder County. You guys want to go ahead.
Sure. Do you want to, can we pull up that,
Sure.
at least your agenda maybe?
The
Or that-
agenda.
Or that, maybe that, yeah, that would be good. Yeah, that would be.
Hi, Trish.
that'd be perfect.
Patricia, we just started. If you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Tricia Dunham, co-chair.
Perfect.
All right. So, hi, I'm Jeff Moline. I am the, oh,
It'll pick you up. You don't.
it'll pick you up,
yeah.
okay. So I'm Jeff Moline. I'm the planning manager for Boulder County Parks and Open Space. Patrick and Allison invited us to come to talk to you about some trail connection areas here between your open space areas and Boulder County open space areas. Al Hardy, who's the manager for our Recreation and Facilities Division, is also here, and the two of us are really happy to be here and happy to talk to you this evening and answer any questions you might have. Looks like you, yeah.
No,
go for it.
perfect. Thanks for coming.
Okay.
We really, really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Been looking forward to this.
Oh, good. So maybe one of the places we could start is just going down your list here. You had two particular things that you wanted to discuss, and so maybe we'll start with the Meadowlark Trail. And again, and so I also need to say I'm standing in for Jesse Rounds, one of the planners on my staff that is on vacation, and so he and Patrick had spoken a little bit about what would be. Well, it's a connection that's
I
a
think
little
it's-
south of 9.
Yeah, so right over
Yes.
right
Yes,
there.
right there.
Yeah.
And so maybe we'll start with that one. I think Patrick had asked our staff to do just a little bit of an assessment to determine how we would view a request to access that part of our property. And so we've looked at that. I'm just going to grab Al's copy of this. I bet you all are aware of this 2007 plan, and if not, we can make a copy of this available to you. And so this is the Marshall Superior Colton Trail Corridor Management Plan. This was a document our department put together, and that was when we were trying to determine some of the alignments of some of these trails, the Meadowlark and the Mayhoffer Single Tree Trail. And at that time, we were also examining some kinds of connections from places in Superior into some of these trail systems. And so I guess I would just say that some of the work that our department considers when we look at these kinds of requests, we refer back to that plan, because some of these requests have been around for that long, for over 8 or 9 years now. And so anyway, so to dive into the detail on this one here on the Meadowlark Trail, which was a little bit discussed in this plan, I believe. And so I guess to dive into the details, sorry here. Patrick had sent us an idea about perhaps accessing this trail, this switchback of the trail using the access road that already exists there, and then it sounds like the town is prepared to work on a crossing of McCaslin, and then you have some trails here.
Yeah, we had kicked around a lot of ideas, whether it's a crossing right there, or if we were, so kind of right where that 9 is, there's High Plains Drive.
Yes.
It's another,
It's a light.
yeah,
It's
so
a
there's
light
already a
crossing.
crossing right there. Whether
Yeah.
it's just creating another trail on the west side of McCaslin, so it brings you to a crossing already. I mean, we're just kind of kicking around whatever it is that might make it possible, so.
Okay.
For us, it's just more a brainstorming session to see from your end, is it possible, and if so, what could we do on our end to make it
I also think it was also to understand if people weren't supposed to be accessing it there, to be clear about that to our residents as
Through the
well.
gate?
Yeah, through the gate. We weren't clear on that. I think that was the other piece that. when it-
Superior likes to break the laws. Didn't say that. Superior residents, the town likes is flawless. So, here. There, those are in front of all of you if you want to. I have one up there for, okay. You have one already?
Oh, yeah.
Laser
And-
pointers.
Yeah, I'm gonna have Al jump in here in a second. I think we'll have him.
Yeah.
we'll
Didn't mean
have-
hijack it, sorry.
well, Yeah. I think one of the things, because we've gotten this request, we sort of concentrated on looking at a way of doing this, and Al can talk to you about, the existing access road itself has some pretty significant grades on it, and when we looked at this trail system, as I'm sure you all know, this trail system was designed to meet standards such as ADA, so the percentage grade, max grade on the trail is something that we tried to do for this system, is something that this little access road would exceed. And so we looked at the possibility of kind of an alternative an alternative design for this that might work. And then in the 2007 plan, I think there was some discussion about coming maybe off of or near this High Plains.
There's
This, the residential area and connecting over.
Yeah, there's at least in the management plan, there's a corridor shown across this, tying into whatever this subdivision is called. So, I mean, that's kind of where, the current look is, there was one there, there's one further up over here, or somewhere over here, accessing that. But, with that again doesn't really reach, I think, what is probably desired by some of your residents. And I can somewhat understand that. I mean, I think, again, walking along the road, just getting access in here gives people potentially a small loop, gives you maybe quicker access onto the open space, do
Right.
whatever you want to do.
Right.
Like Jeff said, I mean, to me, the guidelines for this were definitely set out more with trying to stay with ADA, and that's what the trial was at. It was heavily funded with, kind of Superior money, our money, federal money, all those things. And so that other connection just doesn't really work that great. Like you said, I do think, one possibility that could be looked at harder, and I really just kind of went out there with a chronometer and very quickly shot grades. It might be something that, again, wherever you guys access at a current crossing, come up here on the road right away on this side, but then maybe feed up and across. Because I think if kind of at that driveway for our access road, just to the south of that, on that side, it's a small hill, but it's small. Again, I think it could probably be put at a grade somewhere near that 7 or 8%, where crusher fines in general will hold with a huge downpour, but, with less maintenance. And then once you're kind of up higher in this area, because, the road kind of cut into that hill, then probably some sort of trail headed up towards that area could be probably built around 5%, which again should be fairly sustainable. Would kind of fit with what the guidelines were from that original part.
Would that require switchbacks?
It should not. Really, it would be really, coming along the road and then coming into the property and over.
Okay.
Just with me looking at it, I didn't have anybody else with me or anything else. But, it seemed like it would be feasible,
Okay.
And the trail's fairly close, of course, to the road, so I think we've somewhat gotten from our resource management staff that that part of doing it probably is all right also,
Okay.
In terms of just, no more resources really going to be impacted. So that's kind of, with those. But,
Okay. Yeah, I was just, I mean, having that intersection there, it just seems like be the lowest cost entry into that trail system, and like you said, breaking up into smaller loops if people didn't want to go the whole hog all the way around. So, yeah, that'd be, I think we're, as a committee, open to whatever we can do to get access into that one area there.
So again, I think, that's something that would be more sustainable, might be something that I think, we could work, if it was proposed by Superior, that, again, we are having, I think, several things that may come to us, and at some point, whether we take them to our Parks and Open Space Advisory Committee to also get comment on. Because again, right now, we don't have anything that says there's a connection there, so we also have our process to kind of go through,
So I just want to make sure I got what you're saying. So are you, at least from your perspective, you would look to do something here, not this thing, or one or the other, or?
I think that was our initial thought.
Yeah, I mean, at least from a cost perspective, it just seemed like such an easy entry point into it because it's so close to the road already as it is, where it comes back there. And in terms of just the expense of adding a small section of trail into that, where there's already the access road, where we could possibly dovetail into that somehow, so it would save everybody money.
And the additional thought is, our goal, I think, with the system is to be able to connect more of Superior to the great open space out to the west. So there's a trail access, or a path, I should say, from the neighborhood right there. This whole trail gets a lot of foot traffic. So, our thought is that if we had something there rather than up here, it would see more use from the residents than if we had it up near the actual reservoir. That all sounds.
Yeah, if it's, I guess the question is it, what are we willing to spend? How much time will it take to go up higher versus right there? It's a little more even distribution, I guess, if we go up higher as opposed to down lower near the close intersection point with the road. And will it be accessible from the road, or do you have to go in through the neighborhood to get to it? I'm guessing that neighborhood there would like that, being closer to them. They don't have to walk down the road that way.
Although that means more foot traffic from others as well.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, my only comment with that subdivision is that, the only public sidewalk is really from the driveway in to about where the homes start.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't designed with sidewalks, so if you, just as as not a resident of Superior, just having more people flow through your neighborhood is, I doubt would be
No.
looked highly upon.
Yeah.
I see.
So, and this actually might be a good transition for the next topic that we had on there. So, again, our whole thought process was trying to create better connectivity of the trails out to the west. So that Shan Chu property that we have listed, yep, it's right that yellow, the yellow line right above the.
So
right.
it's actually from
No,
here to there?
it's just that little piece. So that was property that was purchased, what, a year ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty close. And, we've kicked around ideas, more or less just brainstorming what we could do with it. And, there's a decent amount of space out there. We were thinking potential for another trailhead where there could be possibly additional parking, something a little bit more formal than the current. I don't know if that's considered a real trail or an official trailhead. There's a lot of parking that happens on the road right in here. An access point.
In a neighborhood.
Yeah. And the fact that it does go through a neighborhood, we've heard comments, of course, that people driving through and whatnot.
And then, but it's also with the addition of our new town center, there'll be more people that, we come across now from.
Yeah.
So I guess is the property you're talking about this whole chunk?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And so are you thinking the trailhead like down in this corner somewhere?
There's currently sort of a dugout there. when you came down to McCaslin, did you see this house built into the
Yeah,
side of the
yeah.
hill? That's it.
Yeah,
And
right.
that housing is going to be removed. I thought if it's 2 years, it's got one more year?
It's got one more year
Right.
that it has.
So, and there is a flat space there already in front of it where they apparently sell space for RV parking and stuff like that. So you'd have to look at it and you'd have to suggest it, I think.
And it's also tiered, so you could do tiered parking, that level, and then I think there's 2 tiers down from that. I don't know if that was a septic system or why they tiered it like that, but you could do tiered parking in that area as well.
Just as a, I can kind of picture that spot, but can you be going northbound on McCaslin and make a left into that?
Not currently.
Not currently.
Okay.
It depends on, I guess, where we would put the access road into it. Right now, there's a driveway, but it's not optimal,
Okay, okay.
where it's located now. Yeah, I'm not sure how the town.
Further up, though, for the town center, hopefully here shortly, we will have a roundabout a little bit further north as access to the town center. So presumably, if I'm going north on McCaslin, I can take the roundabout and just come.
Come back to it,
Mhm.
and come back up, yeah, not, it's not like having to make an actual U-turn, you would go into the circle and then be able to.
I've got a feeling there'd be a little resistance to cutting through the existing median just to get into the parking when we already have a roundabout planned.
And I mean, clearly, both those connections, what we just talked about, down over here, and that Shan area, are fairly close. I mean, if it's one of those, we end up having to talk about one or the other. I mean, we just wanted to at least put it out there and start to get your guys' thoughts and ideas and plant a seed.
You want
Keep going and I'll.
to jump in there? I mean, I look, and again, you have the Shan property here and then your Arsenal property here. Again, those have conservation easements with Boulder County. Again, they talk about what's allowed, which would be trails and other improvements, some language like that. So I never talked to our real estate person, but my guess is other improvements that are kind of related to recreation. I would assume a trailhead would probably be allowed, but again, we would also have to be asked about that as having that conservation easement on there. Again, as you know, Superior, this is a hill, headed up there. So again, what you look at and where a parking lot might fit in, and then also the trail. I think those are, I kind of glanced up in that area. I drove over there and just glanced up. This is definitely a hill.
Oh,
Where you can put a parking lot, you can easily put it down on the bottom. Again, are you trying to get people off of here or through town so that they're no longer, parking right up here, but maybe somewhere else different would be better?
Mm-hmm, yep.
If different is better and, you guys come up with some sort of plan, I'm sure we'd be amenable to looking at it. My only thoughts, again, strictly from trail again, again, hill.
Right.
And so, can you get up there? If from a trail's perspective, I look at this and, okay, if you put a parking lot somewhere in there, what's another trail coming over along your road, or just say people come over to the trail and up?
Right.
I know it's not as quick to get there, but I think you do still have, physical impediments to designing that trail up the hill. But that's just general comment. So.
And then Al pointed out to me earlier today, maybe we can just talk about, it looks like you guys have it numbered as number 10 there,
Mhm.
this,
I think we need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that segment, and
We should-
we were talking about that for just this.
I was gonna leave it for you.
Oh, yeah, okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. So we were, Al reminded me that is something that our county transportation staff continue to look at, continue to have on their sort of regional trail program, because that little segment, as you guys know, would make kind of help finish a little gap there between Hopper Singletree part of the Coal Creek Regional
Yep.
Trail System, and then connect down to the segment that's actually along the creek there. So we wanted to just let you know that that's still the county knows about that. It's still on the radar, but it's in the regional trail program is in our transportation department, and not a Parks and Open Space department. But it's out there. I don't know if we know if it's in
I haven't-
CI.
I'm pretty sure it's in their CIP. I just didn't look closely enough, but I know they're trying to update some of the timelines in their CIP. They're funded, they had a sales tax and funding, so I know they're, trying to look at what projects they can get done and all those things as that funding is progressing. I think it's about halfway through. They haven't quite spent half, I don't think, but they're wanting to spend and make those things happen.
But you guys would know this maybe more than us right now. At this time, that's still private.
It was just purchased.
Yeah, it was
but
just
it's
purchased.
Still, it's privately
Yeah,
owned by
it's,
a developer.
the plan is to be developed eventually.
Oh, okay.
And that was actually something that we've kind of kicked around is when they do develop it, I mean, when a conceptual plan comes out, there could be discussion with them to see if they'd be willing to put in a trail.
Put the trail
I see,
in
sure, it was
for
part of the
those
public-
neighborhood,
Yeah.
as far as those.
Oh, yeah.
The developer to do it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Since I'm new to the process,
Yeah.
isn't there a trail right there already, right next to the road? So what's new about 10?
So there
that I'm
is,
missing?
there is
There's a
actually.
social, right, or is it?
It actually
official?
looks like it is crusher fine. It's not in great condition. It literally runs parallel to number 10. It just is right up next to the road. And it is crusher fine. There's been some washout on it for sure, but it's there. Doesn't connect, no, it does connect
And
to
there's a little
Singletree.
switchback there that gets you,
Yeah,
there's
there
a
is.
little
Mhm.
road or old road, and then there's a little switchback that gets you on that.
I think that the thought is, though, that it connects over the bridge and doesn't connect directly into the Coal Creek Trail,
Right,
which is
that's-
one of the thoughts.
Right.
Trying to get it to directly connect.
Yeah, I mean, I think the transportation, desire, and probably town of Superior's too, is a separate bridge
Yeah.
across the creek there that then gets you onto that side where you can go underneath the road bridge.
So I do have a question, just because you mentioned all of the trails in here are ADA compliant.
They're
Is-
close, how's that?
Or okay, close. Is that a standard that you guys hold for all your trails?
For our
or-
regional trails, that's really, the attempt is, and of course, the county kind of adopted the idea of soft surface trails as more desirable over hard surface. And, that's just kind of been what the standard is. And so it definitely was it's a improved surface, but it's not concrete or asphalt, that type of thing. ADA, you can go up to roughly like 8.33% for a certain distance. I'm not gonna lie to you, there might be a couple spots out there that might push that a little bit, because that also means you're gonna easily lose crusher fines out there.
Mhm.
The rains that we've had, and the storms, and as you guys are very well aware of, we definitely had erosion during the flood and other things. So, anytime you start really pushing those grades and running a long time with crusher fines, you definitely are more suspect to losing them. So something around 5% is a heck of a lot better. Getting some grade reversals are really helpful. But, yeah. So that's, the trail definitely was laid out that way and was mostly designed with that intent. And it pretty much meets it most of the time, but I gotta admit, probably,
Part of the reason I'm asking is we do have some people who want more extreme trails, for lack of a better, a more athletic thing. And I was just wanting to make sure we didn't run afoul of regulations we were supposed to be following, I guess.
No, I think that's up to you in terms of if you had your own town trails and what standards you want to follow. But in terms of our trails and kind of that open space plan, it really does speak to the idea
Of
we're
everyone being able
regional.
to use it.
We're regional, and again, as our trail is, it went from 8 feet, that's, I gotta always orient myself here, it's 8 feet to roughly here, And then we narrowed it down to 4 feet as it traveled through over to the city's property over off of 63rd or 66. 66, all right, going the wrong way. You know, we built that again, you know, that, all this trail was, you know, built with a grant money and also, you know, participation by the city of Boulder, us, down to Superior, and ultimately federal dollars along with county dollars for transportation.
Thank you.
Okay, well,
So I guess maybe the one thing I would say is that if, it sounds like you're maybe at the kind of the kind of a beginning part of kind of looking at this.
Building ideas.
Okay, so I guess what I would say is when you get ready to make, when you guys, a couple things, sorry, here. So I think, as Al and I've said, I think the department would be willing to entertain, you know, a proposal for something down here and for something in here. And so I guess we'd maybe then look to you to refine a proposal and then make a request of us and say, we'd like the county to, or here's what we'd like to do, and we'd like to get the county's formal reaction to that, and then what that'll prompt us to do, among other things, is probably make a little amendment to this plan, and so there'd be a formal process. It would probably come before you, it would come before us. So that's maybe how to handle these two things, and I'd also say that Al's been great in reminding me that it's helpful for our department if in your request you've maybe also done some of the preliminary kind of estimation of where you would want it, the cost, if you're going to be requesting any of that cost be covered by the county, because I don't think either of these are currently on our 5-year capital improvement program. And I'm not saying that to necessarily discourage you from making that request.
Planning purposes
of the county, yeah, but you know, again, it's not something that's been on our budgetary radar. So, you know, if you want to get really clear answers from the county on those kinds of things, I would just ask that your request, you know, have as much information in it as you are interested in putting in, so we can respond to that.
Generally, how much time do you think it would take to go through this entire process of sending to you, coming back, sending back?
It can go pretty fast. I worked for the county for 11 years in our department, and then for about 10 years I worked in Louisville and Lafayette. And in Lafayette, while I was there, we wanted to make a connection to an area that's on the south side of Lafayette, and I really wanted to, from the Lafayette perspective, we really wanted to move on this mile or half-mile long trail, and my former colleagues at the county said, well, we're going to have to modify this plan, and we were able to do it, you know, within a couple of months, I'd say. So, you know, our Parks and Open Space Board meets monthly. That was a rather simple request, and these aren't necessarily wouldn't necessarily be too complicated. You do have to build in just a little bit of time for our staff to take a little more in-depth look. Al and I and our divisions have taken a look at some of these, and we've talked with, for example, our resource staff and biologists and that kind of stuff. And I mean, I think both of these things probably aren't going to trigger huge issues for that. So I don't know that there would need to be a lot of time, but I do want to just caution you that there might be a little bit of lag time while our staff takes a look at this.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Would it be feasible to include this with our open space and trail recommendation, or should it be a separate process?
I guess I would say that if you want, if you're asking kind of for something that you want to see happen, well, Yeah,
I mean, I guess I would say, yeah, we ask yearly for the recommendations that you might have for open space and trails. I mean, those are kind of a check-in point, saying these are in interest of us. We usually kind of get back to you at some point with, okay, this is where we're at. And I think, what we continue to say related to a lot of these requests in this area is, if there is something that you ultimately really desire, I think it would need to be, we have this, so if it's not in there, chances are we need to amend that. And so that amendment really is, as Jeff was saying, it can be a simple, 1-2-page memo that kind of describes what you're asking. Again, I would say have, Superior staff work a little bit with us, like with Jesse to kind of formulate what that is, or even meet us out on site to talk about those conditions and see if we see anything just up front before that ask is made. But once that ask is made, if it's kind of formal, I would just say, again, it would go through kind of the planning division, and hopefully at least a couple of these things could be fairly quick. And again, I know, some other requests have been made in the past, and whether that's, trail cutting across maybe from that little section out there down to the Colton Trail. Again, where this, this plan really spoke about why we didn't want to do that. So I think for us, you ask something like that of us, I don't know if we would feel comfortable even really bringing it to our board, because it's really already been addressed in terms of kind of why we chose not to do that. And I think those values are high to our department. So, if it's a request that we may not have, I think, as much vested in why we kind of chose not to, and especially that one is kind of in there. And
Is this plan on your website?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So we should,
So it sounds like you're always safe with an individual letter that addresses
some
it.
sort of memo
Yeah.
that really says,
Yeah.
this is what we're asking for. What are your thoughts? And ideally, that are you asking for money? For one, you're asking for some sort of access over our property, ultimately the county's property. And, so whatever that is, and if we can work our way through it, I think Jeff is really true. I think these couple of things that we talked about here are probably somewhat simple for us to probably amend. But if you start going somewhere where we're not really, where we've had planning before and said there's some values in here that we're trying to, avoid, then I would say it might be harder for us to jump in there. You could still make the ask. I'm not trying to say you can't.
Right.
It would go to us. We would probably create some sort of a response. It could still go to our board. You don't know what will happen. So.
Yeah, I guess that, not unsurprisingly, I agree with Al. And I think for example, in some of the past 5-year, some of the past annual requests you've made to us, I think at some point there has been this request to connect this switchback over to the Colton Trail. And again, like Al said, that was kind of addressed in here. And that would be for example, one of those more difficult, that would be one that, that would take a pretty significant amendment to this, and one that right now, as we're kind of standing here, we can think of staff that would have some pretty big concerns about that. Yeah.
No, but
again,
that's
not to say that you couldn't make that request.
No, it's good to know, and it's good to know if it's addressed, because, a lot of these requests come from our citizens, and it would just be good to know if you could just say back, no, that's already been looked at.
Yeah.
It's really not.
And perhaps somebody could make the case that, geez, things have really changed since 2007. You guys ought to look at this again. But I don't know, again, the two of us kind of just standing here, that would be a harder thing than these other ones that you asked about. So.
When do you plan to review this 2007 document?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. So, so let me move maybe we can talk about one other thing. I don't know how well this really fits into your agenda, but we have had a couple other conversations with Louisville, and Patrick's been on some of these visits of trying to figure out a way to connect with the underpass, thank you. And then Louisville has this really strong desire to connect kind of from this area, the underpass, to this Mayhopper Singletree Trail, which again heads to the west and connects into the city of Boulder's stuff further west. Excuse me. And so we've been looking at how would we do that. We've had some ongoing discussions with, in particular, Louisville and their water treatment plan here. How can we work around that? This is I would say, a more complicated situation, and we've talked to Louisville about, maybe there's some other options, including something like this that you're depicting on this map here. So all that to say that when they come back, we've made the same pitch to them, show us what you really want to do, what do you want the county to do, do you want access, and where do you want it to be? And so we've asked them to formalize their request to us. And I guess one thing that we've thought of is if we would get a formal request from them, and then maybe if you guys would come in with a request for something down here, then maybe it does get to be time to do a little bit more of an update of this. That probably is a longer process, however, than if you wanted to decouple these requests from this larger effort. And again, because these are smaller things that we don't perceive as having kind of big other resource or other kinds of issues, you could kind of keep those separate, and we could process these, I think, quicker than trying to look at sort of this whole plan again. Boy, that was a long answer, sorry.
Good answer, though. No.
Yeah, I need to.
And I guess just staring up here again, I saw your number 16 there, and I know that's one also that I know Jesse's also been working with, I think, the town
Yes, that's
staff
right.
with. And again, I think maybe that's another one where I think we see as a department, again, it's kind of right on the fringe of what our ownership is. And again, I think it's something that I think we've, at least as a department, see that, there's potential there for something also, because it's not a very, even though it looks long there, but I really don't think the
Right.
actual ask.
16 is the one the developer's doing, right,
Yeah,
Allison?
that's the Coal Creek Crossing Trail.
That's
Yeah.
the Coal Creek
There's a
Crossing.
And then
little
there's
bit of our
this
ownership.
little-
Yeah, there's a little bit at the end. Well, no, because
Yeah.
it becomes the trail that goes, it
Yeah.
has that little bit that
Yeah.
goes over the
And-
property.
And I think staff is meeting
Yeah.
later this week on that.
Yeah, I'm meeting Patrick out there, I think tomorrow, to kind of relook at that one. So that, again, would fall into that, we could look, if you wanted to, we could look at these all kind of comprehensively and look at redoing this whole thing, but if you are you want to do some of these in a more quick time frame, then, and again, because they're small, I think we could do that too.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Sort of
prefer quick.
individual requests. Yeah.
For the full-size management plan, even this was, a trail management plan, I think for us too, it's just the workload we have is, the priorities and the flood has really tapped our planning.
Yes.
Besides other things,
Yes.
it's definitely, there's a constraint there at some level. We still, of course, will try to work with whatever comes to us.
That makes sense. Allison, do you have the trail recommendations that we've been sending available? While you guys are here, if we could just kind of look at what we've sent
Yeah,
you guys in the
sure.
past,
Yeah.
so we can just
Yeah,
kind
we,
of...
They've got it too, I think.
Yeah.
That way we can kind of get an idea of whether we can stop putting it on the list or change the way we're saying things,
I
or...
think it's huge.
well, I think we're still trying to learn, what's, the process of asking and making sure when we ask what is relayed back is also making sense. That there aren't assumptions kind of being made on both sides.
Mhm.
If you were asking, or you thinking, we say, yeah, if you bring something to us, we'll consider it. Does that mean we'll consider it financially? Does that mean, where we're thinking, oh, well, we might be able to let that happen on the Parks and Open Space land. But maybe not fund it because it's more of a community need,
Mm-hmm.
but
And I'm going to speak for myself, but perhaps Al, it might be harder for us to talk about the, at least I'm looking at that and thinking, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer kind of the open space
not the open
parcel
space where it's,
request.
you know,
Right.
it'd be really trails.
Yeah.
That I can maybe speak a little bit to.
Yeah.
Page 11. Two more down. We're on page 9. Oh.
That's property?
Were trails lower in the document? I'm trying to remember. Is it 11?
Here's-
Here. Go further down. I think the numbers restart. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, when you get to the here section, this, I think this is, yep.
Perfect.
Wow.
Yeah, so, Al can punch me and he wants to say something. So, that first one was the one that we were just kind of discussing. And we've been in discussions with Patrick about that as well. And I guess I would say right now, we've pushed it back into Louisville to say, why don't you guys take a look at this, given your kind of budget, and kind of show us exactly what you, Louisville, would like to do to get from the underpass and Marshall Road up to the Mayhopper Single Tree Trail, and I think right now, at least from my perspective, that's kind of back in Louisville's court for them, that they're kind of working through some of their kind of stuff. And I think, we would be happy if Patrick wanted to get back involved in some of those discussions. That would be, I think we've been trying to keep him informed, but right now, because it's Louisville's water treatment plant, and they've been really pushing this, it's been in their wheelhouse or whatever right now, so.
Okay.
Second one again is that one from the western alignment over to the Colton Trail. So we kind of just talked about that again. For us, like I said, kind of in the plan. This was really we ended up with. It's going to be really hard, but there are these black other corridors considered, and that one you drew is one that was considered. And again, the plan focused on what was built.
What's the name of this document?
It's the Marshall Superior Colton
Okay,
Trail.
I got it right here.
Big
I'll send it.
Big mouthful.
I'll send it to my team. I'll send it to the team. Yep.
Thank you.
So yeah, that right side of that spreadsheet kind of does a pretty good job of sort of summarizing our concerns about that one.
Well, no, it's good to know your concerns, because then it's not worth us putting it on. If
Well-
now it's been addressed at this point, look at something else that has a higher chance of
Right. and
getting
again,
approval.
If it's still a citizen concern, that's up to you.
Mhm.
And then I guess the next one down is the one that we talked a little bit about with the trailhead and on the Shanshan property.
Do you have the map that goes with this? I don't think it's on. Of course, I have it, but that doesn't help.
But that makes sense that wouldn't have been in the 2007, because that was private property at that point, so it wouldn't have been identified as something to be looked at putting a
Right.
trail on, so.
So again, you know, this talks, that Shan Shan property, I think one year you were asking about a trail connection up there, and I think maybe now, maybe you're thinking Trailhead 2, whatever that is. Again, it would just really require a little bit of planning by us, but again, I think as you heard, maybe that's something that we could be definitely open to looking at. So.
Okay. Let's see. Was
Oh, the standard, or the, excuse me, the.
Yeah, there was a section of the Colden Trail, brought up the standard. I mean, I think, again, for us, we don't have it specifically identified in any CIP. I think what we kind of stated 2 years ago, or a year ago, whatever, related to, we were going to be kicking off the South County Grasslands Management Plan, and we could also kind of somehow maybe incorporate that in there in terms of what's that desire for that surface. The section I think Superior identified, I think we probably have complete control of. It gets a little strange as with the city of Boulder, and I don't know if we actually have a formal agreement with the city of Boulder, so that's one of those missing things out there that we kind of know we share responsibility as the trail kind of turns and heads south more. But we're definitely open to doing that. I just think we just haven't had time to really address that piece of it.
Have you been out there recently?
I have not been out
Yeah,
there.
it's
recently.
pretty rutted,
Yeah.
isn't it? You bikers, how would you describe the
It always
condition?
is in the spring.
Huh?
It always is in the spring after
Right.
the tough rains.
The other thing I would maybe say, the right-hand side on that row, we talked just a little bit about, what's the chance or what are the opportunities of doing an update of this plan, and that's what that South County Grasslands Management Plan. And I would say that at this point, that is not scheduled to kick off in the next 1 or 2 years. I would say it's going to be a couple of years before we would be able to entertain that again. So that, I just wanted to pass that on. We're just kind of, our planning division is pretty well consumed with flood recovery stuff here the next couple of years.
Number 4 was the one we kind of talked about for that link over
Right.
to, by the road bridge. So again, we kind of have it listed as transportation's responsibility there. Number 5, Colton Trail South.
Let's see.
Oh. So is that, that would.
If we pull up the that other map we were looking at, I think that shows what we're. So I think if you scroll down, that number 5, I think, is what that is.
That would definitely be our management plan process for the South.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. That's a expensive, involved deal.
And I guess maybe this is a time, I know your town has a particular feeling about the Rocky Mountain Greenway and the trail proposed through Rocky Flats. But I guess I would say that the county is we're still looking at ways of making some connections to the trail, the Rocky Mountain Greenway portion that's in Westminster, and connecting that to parts of our trail system. And I don't know if that's sort of.
Tab at the top. Oh, never mind.
I'm not sure if that was part of the intent of that one that you were showing there, but that does remain a trail master plan process that we're involved in.
So would you finish that thought about the Rocky Flats Trail in relation to this number 5 trail?
Sure. Can we look at
The map.
the?
So Alice,
know what happened to it.
they both open in Adobe, it's just the tabs are at the top.
Oh, was it? I
Yeah.
couldn't.
So
I've
it's
never
all
had
the
that
same,
happen
it's all in the
before.
same software, you just got, look at the tabs at the top.
Sean, I
See?
want
Right
to
there.
hire you.
I've been just as confused.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
So
I
to-
never.
So can you take it all the way down to 128? Is that on there?
Yeah, that's 128 right
Isn't
there.
this one?
Yeah, that's 128, yeah.
That is 128?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't, so I guess what I should do is listen to what your vision for what number 5 kind of does for you. I guess maybe it sort of makes a loop.
That's been something that's been long-standing on our trails plan. And I've been on the committee for about 3 years now, and it's been on our plan since before I joined. I think our initial thought is that could become a full loop, because as this trail goes all the way out, it does have that connection out at the highway. So I think the thought, and again, we're missing whatever the rest of this picture is that this could end up linking there, or whether this is more bikes and you end up on the highway and you're riding on the shoulder. I'm not exactly sure if we've talked recently about what our full vision is, mostly because we knew this was a real challenge and we had other things that we could do in the near term.
Well, and the discussion over the long term has been what's happening out at Rocky Flats and the wisdom of even wanting to connect our trails to that system. Now, it's been illuminating for me as I've attended every meeting of every city council that Colton Trail is probably going to be that exit point on 128 is somewhere close to where this proposed underpass is planned or considered. You know, there are apparently several alignments there. So do we have a map that goes further west?
You know what, if you open up maps.google.com, you can actually see the trails from the aerial view.
Yeah.
Or even, actually, I'm not even sure you need the aerial view. But if you zoom in close enough.
I guess, I mean, just as a, I really do think that line that you're talking about across that open space, we do not have a management plan for it. And so in reality, that really is that South County grass planning. And, that would be when we would go enter into that planning process where Superior, among other folks, could talk about what they would want to see out there. What comes out of that process, we don't know.
I want to think that our citizens who always ask for that one are a lot of our
What did you want me to
mountain
zoom in
bikers
on?
who make that bigger.
Yeah, so if you switch over to the map view, I think
Yeah.
You might need to scroll back a little bit.
there's a light gray line you would be able to see if you, right there, see the light gray line? Yeah, right there. That's a
That's the-
trail.
that's the
an
current
existing
one, yeah.
trail right there, yeah, so you can see it now. And I think we were proposing that it would somehow connect into that trail, maybe? I don't know.
So it would come across, right, Sean? like down?
Yeah, although I'm not sure.
So yeah, we have it coming out right at the top of the bend. So it looks like what we were proposing, it puts it out somewhere over there, because it was right at the top of the bend. So
Is that where there's that kind of informal parking lot
Yeah,
with that
yep.
overlook
Yep.
that the
Yep.
guys fly the
Mhm.
planes, mechanical planes?
We have a really old sign.
yeah. So again, I think it would take more brain power on our side to even know what we were really hoping out of there.
Yeah, and I would just say, I don't know if that's needed brain power, I would just say, because until we actually would move into a planning process,
Mhm.
I just, don't know what those outcomes, it wouldn't be anything until we actually moved into that.
And then, yeah, and then I guess I would just maybe say, you might want to wait until the Rocky Mountain Greenway alignments and some
Yeah.
of those things kind of get sorted out. Because who knows, people have talked that there would be something coming up in Indiana, for example. So to avoid being in the wildlife refuge, and so if you did that, then you're about where the palm is.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, there's just
A lot of
some
variables.
parts that-
It has fallen to the bottom of our trails list.
Okay.
It's not ranking at the very top right now. We just
Okay.
know that you guys would need to be involved, so I think we've continued to put it on our requests to you guys.
And then the other one was number 6 is the first thing we spoke about, I think.
Cool. I know this has been super illuminating for me. Does anyone else have any questions or anything?
I was just curious about the habitat that you spoke about. Is there any possibility that that can ever be entered? In the future, I want to be able to not discuss that if the habitat can't be separated, or what are your thoughts on that? I know it said it would impact wildlife and fragments the habitat.
Yeah, I guess the way I would maybe phrase that is, you could, again, we don't want to say that you can't make those requests. I would just say that, for example, on the same area, in the same general management area, the South County grasslands, we've been having the same kinds of concerns with Louisville's request to tie into the upper part of the Upper Single Tree Trail. And so I would say you'd just be, those comments from that request from last year, I'd say those are mostly all still there, and that you'd be facing some pretty stiff headwinds from our resource staff about, the habitat issues haven't changed that much. Some of those concerns stem from things like Preble's meadow jumping mice, which are found on Rock Creek, in the Rock Creek drainage. That wouldn't necessarily apply to some of the requests that you made, or some of the alignments you showed, but our staff has some pretty strong sensitivity in terms of habitat, and then also some agricultural issues as well. Maybe not so much on that particular example, but again, up in the Louisville request, we have some concerns there about, we have ag leases, and so every time you drive a trail into those areas, then you got to talk about gates and making sure that people don't leave them open, and those they're just become kind of maintenance and management issues that currently don't exist. So
Good, thank you, that's helpful.
Does that help?
Yep, very
Okay.
much.
Okay.
Next, I have one more question. Oh, no.
I mean, I think, it's just, the values that are kind of entrusted to our open space, there is just a lot there, so we try to balance all those things, and again, if you kind of look more at the management plan, it'll talk about, some of the things that were put into that design. To be honest, the corridor that was in there, I think actually had the trail, the very first trail on the bottom there, on the other side of the ridge, to try to shield kind of the view of people there. But then we found a leopard frog in the pond that is up there, and so that became more of a priority for our wildlife staff. And so we kind of moved the trail and then put it on the other side of the ridge. So, certain things kind of do mold and bend as we kind of go along, especially if we learn new information. But, we definitely, there are a lot of values that you attempt to balance, and that doesn't mean, ultimately a trail can't be somewhere. It's just really got to kind of work its way through that public process about what's really valued, and what are the goals. If it's a goal to get people for a connection somewhere, well, can we do that without causing other conflicts and concerns? And that's kind of how you see that got put there, and that's kind of so So we kind of work within those realms.
You actually answered my question well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thanks
Really,
for-
really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for coming.
Absolutely, yeah. That's not to do that.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks.
See you later.
Oh, and if you're driving south, make sure you look at that property, because it is tiered. It is tiered.
Would you grab my pointer off there? Because I will need it at the next meeting.
You think?
All right. Well, that was very useful.
Very.
So can you recap? Can you propose using that gate access or not?
So they don't want to use the gate access.
But just goes
They want
a
it-
little
we
south?
can build something new right there.
Right.
I think that almost defeats what our thought was, because we were trying to build on something that was already there and not have to create a brand new
I think we
entrance.
can go through the first part, that they don't want you going up to the hill they want to direct people to go down.
Just because it's a lower grade.
Well,
Yeah.
it's all about the grade,
And
right.
the
Yeah.
grade
Yeah.
and to not let the cows in, because that's what they live there.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that the whole area was ADA compliant, that they were
Yeah.
going for that compliance and.
So,
keeping
do
it
we have a
so-
way, does someone on staff, or do we have a way that we can figure out grades? Because apparently they use some kind of,
Grades are very important.
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to. I mean, we
I would
can-
presume there is quite a bit of knowledge on some of the park staff about that.
Well, he did recommend that Boulder County staff and town staff do a meetup and go to a couple sites together and talk about some things once you guys.
I think
Make a
the big thing
determination.
for us is, we were trying to hit low-hanging fruit with that access that's already there.
Mhm.
That low-hanging fruit isn't there anymore because of the grade issue, so we would actually have to construct something.
Mhm.
So if we have to expend the money to actually construct something there rather than using something that's pre-existing, does it make sense to actually do that right there and also think about the Colton Trailhead, or not Colton Trailhead, the Shan Shan Trailhead? Because now we've got a lot of access points that are pretty close to each other if we're building and spending money. So in my mind, that's the big thing we have to tackle. Whether that's tonight or some other night. And we can actually work that in on our next topic, the 5-year trail plan as well, and that might provide some more illumination. Sandy, to finish that recap though, I think they are willing to do both that and Shan Shan. We just need to develop better, more detailed plans. We can present it to them, and probably should present it to them in a standalone memo rather than our trail recommendations.
We shouldn't link up with Louisville and
Oh.
what they want to do. I don't think up there, I think we should do it as a separate
Exactly.
piece.
So, at this point, I think we've got a lot to think about, and I think we should probably just table this conversation until after we do this exercise with the 5-year trail plan to see where this points us, and that can kind of help guide not just where we want to go, but guide where ProStack is thinking as well. So, we are now moving on to the 5-year trails plan. Something that was discussed at the leadership meeting that Patricia and I had with ProStack's leadership earlier this year, and the year prior even, was trying to do our 5-year trail plan in a way that could be meshed with ProStack. That way we could potentially, in one fell swoop, create a trail plan that we both committees can get behind, rather than sending individual plans to the board and having them parse it out. This spreadsheet that's in front of us right now is something that ProStack has been using. They use it for their or for their amenities that they look at each year, and they've also adapted it to look at their trail plan. So what they do is at the top you can see each person has their name for 3 columns. The first column is where you're going to rank high, medium, or low your desire to have that trail. It's my understanding, and Allison, correct me if I'm wrong, did they explain to you how they use this, and Patricia, you as well? But we are going to put a 3, 2, or 1 next to all of them, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then for that next column, for in the top 3, do you recall, are we saying this is our number 1 trail, is number 2, and this is number 3?
Yes.
Okay. So also put whatever your top trail is, whatever number 2 trail is, whatever number 3 trail is. And then that last column is what you'd like to have done in the 2016-2017 time frame. Are we just putting an X in there? To
Yeah, I
indicate
think
that
it's
that's-
just saying, yes, this is our, for the next year. This
Yeah.
is,
So the goal is, this gives us something quantifiable that we can create for OSAC. We'll send this spreadsheet out to all of the OSAC members and just ask that it gets completed before our next meeting. We will tabulate the scores that we get just for OSAC. ProStack will do the same for them, and then we will also mesh these. That way we can see what a combined score would look like. If there's severe deviation amongst the two, maybe we don't move forward with just a combined this way, but it at least helps us move in that direction. The big thing that we need to do tonight is try to decide whether or not there's anything we want to add to this list. Sean, can
Yes.
you highlight numbers 1, 4?
1, 4. The whole row?
No, just 1, 4, 6, and 7. Actually, I guess it wouldn't matter.
Here they are.
And just add a color to that.
Okay, where are the colors?
And then this
Hold
is-
on, just give me a second.
coincides with this.
Go to view.
I have it on here,
No,
too.
minimize, there we go.
Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Come on, mouse. There we go. Boom.
Perfect.
Yep.
And so that's what we recommended to the board for expedited construction. If you go down to 9 and 10, and highlight those a different color. That was in our initial thought process for recommending to the board, but we decided to keep out because it was duplicative. That's the number 9 is that trail on the east side of McCaslin that goes from High Plains Drive to Colton.
You mean west side?
No. Oh, yeah, sorry.
West.
We're proposing on the west side. There is one on the east side.
Side, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yep.
And then number 10, that's actually the trail that they were talking about, Boulder County representatives talking about tonight, that we're hoping eventually a developer might be able to help us with.
Yep.
So we took those off, and then the only other one I want to point out is if we go down to number 18, Coyote Ridge was in the recommendation we made to the board, but we more or less just said it's something that's a priority to us and didn't make a solid recommendation.
We
Since
wanted that engagement meeting to
exactly,
happen.
which did happen, and we found that the community didn't really want to do much up there. So there might be trail improvements, but it's not going to be what used to be.
They don't want any formalization up there.
Exactly. So
The people who use it more frequently like that it's more
Rustic.
rustic and, that was the feeling in the room,
They've got their own private little thing over there.
Yeah, they would not like to be inviting
yeah,
potentially
so where it says
an 8-foot trail on there and.
where it says maintenance and improvements, that really is small and just to fix erosion issues up in that area.
And potentially still that connection from the Yarrow neighborhoods.
Yeah. So, but again, we didn't hear that that was something urgent, and people were super guarded about even doing that.
Yeah, they're,
So that was just the public comment we've already received on those. Now, just to point out things that we have had on our 5-year trail plan in the past that are not currently on there, is the Shan Shan Trailhead. That was removed. This is just ProStack's list that we're looking at, so they just didn't have it on there. So we can add that.
And that map coincides with the numbering, so.
On the spreadsheet.
So you can look at
Okay.
those together.
Yeah.
Yep. So Shan Shan might be something we want to add back. That
Heck
way,
yeah.
that way we can
Yeah.
keep our eyes on it.
Is that not 6? You know, a part of 6?
We have it. It
Mm-mm.
kind of got blended. That probably should have been removed with this map. That used to have its own number. That little offshoot.
Okay.
So we would need to add Shan Shan back, just as another one. If you want
me to do it now?
Yeah, as well.
All right.
yeah.
Let me change the view, because it looks like we're, oh, great. So 21. Shan, 2. Trailhead. Oops.
And then the only other one that we did have on our old 5-year trails plan that's no longer there is to construct a soft trail west of Calmonte from Colton Road. That's what Calmonte is going to be building. So they're responsible for that. I just wanted to ask, I mean,
I think we should add that back on, but I think we can put a dash that says Calamonte, because that's where we got into trouble where nobody remembered that
We
the
lose
other
track of
developer
things, yeah.
was doing.
Yeah, the goal this year is complete list.
Yeah, is the complete
Even if
list.
somebody
I think
else is
we
gonna
can
build it.
put that someone else is building it, but I think we should just keep it on there, because we all lost track of the
Coal Creek.
Coal Creek one, and everyone forgot about it and didn't know.
She's being kind. I don't think you knew about it.
Well, I don't think we knew about it, yeah.
I didn't know about it.
Yeah, we didn't know about it, but at some point it was on someone's radar and then it fell off. So I think, yeah, just add it and
Yeah.
they
So-
can take care of it.
So adding those two completes the full transition from our old list to this list.
Where's this one again? Where's 22?
Calmonte is down.
Is it along?
Yeah,
It's
right.
the new, it's
Is
the.
it Colton or is it McCaslin?
No,
Like which
it's
corner?
right here.
It's just right south
So
of
is it
Colton.
connecting here
It's
or
the,
here?
yeah, it's in
It's
here, it's
just-
these.
Oh, it's
north to
interior.
south. It's north to south.
Sidewalk
Yeah.
right next to
So
the
it's just
corner,
north.
and
Uh-huh.
it brings you to the trailhead through the roundabout.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So around that is.
So that used to be.
So
on
it would be
there.
up along McCaslin then, or?
It would be
It cuts through their
McCaslin and
property.
the corner of Colton into that sidewalk.
Okay.
Into that sidewalk,
Yeah.
that, so
That
those
goes to the
houses
trailhead.
that are being.
Sure, yeah, they come around, yeah, I
Yeah.
know where the neighborhood is. Okay, thank you.
Are we still calling that Calamonte, or are they calling it something else? 'Cause
Is
of
it
the-
Calmonte?
Yeah, they
Oh,
still
no,
call
that's
it
it.
Is it Calmonte or Cala?
We used to call it
I think you have it
Calamity.
right.
Now
I think
it's
that's
back
right.
to
Yeah.
Calmonte. Now that it's all being developed.
Yeah.
So I guess the big question now, Sean, if you can flip back to the map,
Love to.
is there anything that we have thought of that we haven't thought of but you'd like to bring up or anything like that that we want to throw on
Well,
as?
do we want to also take things off, like we just discussed, number 5,
Mhm.
outside of re-altering where it goes? I mean, it's pretty, I mean, that number 5 and number whatever that one is.
I would make
Is that
it just a low priority on your ranking sheet, because,
Okay.
so just so both committees have both lists exactly the same way, and it's like a joint effort, and they wanted that on, that was part of their list.
I think what we could do is rank it low and maybe even put a note or say, you know,
Re-
we had discussion, you know, with the Boulder, I want to get their names
BOCO.
right. Yeah, BOCO, you know, that here's why that's not really going to move up anybody's list anytime soon, so.
Mhm.
When we fill this out, Ken, how do you want us to approach the second 2 columns? So high, or in top 3, and then 2016, 2017?
So
Would those not be the same, or how would you like us to look at that?
for that middle column, the high group top 3,
Mhm.
whatever your number 1 is, put a 1 next to it. Number 2,
Mhm.
put 2, and then 3, a 3, and whichever of the trails.
Out of
They
those 3,
they are saying their number 1 is their top, right? They're not doing it in reverse order.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think how we'd end up doing the math on this.
It's a
In-
little confusing, guys, because high is 3 in the first column. So somebody's going to have to be clear in the
All right,
second.
yeah. So
Okay.
I said that in reverse order. Your top, well,
No, in the
It
first,
says
at the
high group,
high, in the
high group.
first, you get the 3, and then in the second column, it really is like, this is my number 1.
1, 2.
That's right.
This is my number 2, this is my number 3.
so the first column, you should be putting a number 3, a number 2, or a number 1. A number 3 represents that's a high priority for you. A number
Because it's going to
2,
get the most weighting in the.
exactly.
Yeah.
That second column, number 1 is your number 1. Number 2.
You take all the ones you mark 3 in the first column.
And you
More or
mark
less.
it,
And
yeah.
then you might have 6.
You might
And
have
you
6
can
number
only
3s in your
Right.
first column, and then you
now
have
you've
to
got
parse out.
to take those.
And make it your
and
1,
hit
2, 3.
1, 2, and 3, and the rest drop off.
Yep.
Exactly. And then for
Third column.
the third column,
Is
Wh-
2016
whatever,
priority.
yeah.
Yeah, is your.
The one you
it's
absolutely-
4, 5, 6,
basically
7,
1.
8.
It
Built in.
goes down to a 1, yeah.
Yeah,
so col-
Well,
Oh, are we doing? Oh, yeah,
I
X's.
don't know, that's what
We're
you
just
said.
doing
Ryan, you can pick more for 2016,
Yeah.
2017
Oh, no, I'm just curious.
priorities.
So we don't want
Yeah.
to prioritize the third
You
column.
can, but you
Yeah.
should
Right.
be
The second
realistic.
column.
Well, and that was going to be my question.
Well-
What are the constraints on this? I mean, there's obviously not an
For you,
unlimited budget. So
none.
do we just?
Really?
Just
It's, the
gut
board
feel
will
and-
impose the constraints.
And
Yeah.
realistic?
Yeah,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and for consistency purposes, before we send this out, I'll touch base with Peter Bottomley, the ProStack chair, just to make sure that we are using the same format for ranking that they are,
Yep.
to make sure we don't have any
And so
translation
Ryan,
issues.
as a new member, if, you have to learn these trails.
I know them all.
You know
I've been on every
them.
single one of these,
Oh,
so
see,
I know
I'd
them.
make staff do a tour with me.
We would be
Okay.
happy to go out in the field.
I still may.
Go out for a full day run.
Thanks.
So, I'm trying to think, so was there anything,
So why top 3? Why not just rate them all? I mean, this is priorities, and priorities are going to dictate.
the priorities in theory are what's going to create your ranking.
Right, so, all right.
What happened was,
Oh,
is this spreadsheet was modeled after a different process that ProStack has done with the playground priorities and amenitization. And so they were proposed to use the same spreadsheet, and during the joint meeting of the leadership of the committees, this was kind of what came out of that process.
And we haven't done it before. It sounded fair enough. So if we do run into issues, we can fix it for next year's rankings.
I think our goal is just to sort of get us closer together, or at least understand if we're closer together. It's okay if we're not, if we.
Yes. Because when we tried to rank them before, it was a big mess, and we couldn't compare, and,
Yeah.
this is much better.
It's a nice way to say it.
But Sean, I think
Yeah.
as you, both committees keep working together,
Uh-huh.
you can make that recommendation. Why just the top 3?
Right.
You know, maybe go a little deeper.
Well, and I think it also, I mean, you were saying rank them like 1 through 17 or whatever we have. I think it was more borne out that it's easier to quantify this if you have like your actual priorities set on them, rather than saying, okay, so there were 3 people who thought number 17 was a top priority, and then 5 people thought 17 was the lowest priority. It makes it a little bit easier to actually get these into a usable format, I think. So anyways, when we do send this out, I will provide instructions again to make sure we are all on the same page.
Should I save this then?
Yes.
Boom. done.
I do
Um,
have a question on a trail.
yeah,
though. I mean,
please.
you talked about maybe potential new trails, but there's an access road behind I don't even know the neighborhood name, but right by the Key Bank on the other side of McCaslin.
Mhm.
And there's a gate there, and you can
Mhm.
kind of meander beyond
That's how I
that
usually
and
get
go.
in, right.
Is that a possibility for a trail?
Is that where we talked? That's not.
That's the barbed wire.
No, it's
Mhm.
not.
No, it's
You're-
not the
What
barbed
side of Key Bank are you thinking?
Oh, I'm on
People
the
at
other
the-
side of
the
McCaslin,
map?
so, and it goes all the way down to 88th, basically.
On the north or the south? You're saying the north side of the bank, right?
Oh, no, I'm actually saying, see where 6 is?
Yeah,
Right
I'm
there,
trying to
and
think.
all the way down to 36. Right where the 6 number is,
Mhm.
Yeah.
there's just that straight line, right between the houses
Right
and the
here.
new Superior Town, yeah.
Straight
that
through.
whole-
It's on the north side of the bank.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
Which is not the property we discussed.
Yeah.
That was the south side.
right, actually, and that brings up a good point. Sean, can you bring the trail map back up one more, or not map, it's the spreadsheet?
Spreadsheet, yep.
And go and just highlight 16, 19, and 20.
16, 19.
I just don't want to lose this thought real
20,
quick.
and-
Those are all brand new, newly added. Those weren't on our
Did you want me
list
to
before.
color
Just,
those?
yeah, just a new color. All right, sorry. Now that we've done that, we actually have, where is it? What number? Number 17, Town Center Trail
Oh,
Connections.
okay, okay.
I think that falls
I see.
within that general header.
Okay,
I know the trails within Town Center haven't been fully developed yet because the Town Center hasn't. There's still amendments, changing roads and things going on in there, so that hasn't been thought through. However, what you pointed out, Sandy's, that's the buffer, right? Is that what we were
Mhm.
looking at?
Mhm.
So there, in the end, it's gonna be open space, and I believe the idea is to have a trail that goes on it.
Mhm.
So it will be, when is anyone's guess?
okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I'll add keys for these colors that we've added too, so everyone knows what it is you're actually looking at.
That Coal Creek Crossing north-south trail, is that the one that also a developer is going to do?
Yes.
You want to have that?
Yep.
Just in, parentheses, just so people know.
Sounded like the developer was doing most of it, and then it wasn't quite connecting to the trail, is
Yeah,
what he
so
was
there's that
saying.
little piece that.
Yeah. Just a little bit of history. So the developer was actually in their development plan that was approved by the board, required to add that trail and another. It came back up before OSAC, ProStac, and the board a few months ago, and it was decided to remove the trail that would go east-west across. Yeah, so remove
So these
east-west.
guys didn't want it going, yeah,
What through here?
Yeah, but to keep that actual
Okay.
north-south.
So these, so original town really wants
They just don't
less
want.
access in there?
Yeah.
Is that
Well,
what it
they
is?
don't want cars
Sure, like right
lining
here.
their,
Right
you know,
there,
Yeah.
those streets are
Yeah,
narrower
yeah.
than other streets in town. They don't want, which happens somewhat now, so they weren't wanting more encouragement
Yeah.
of cars lining. the
So
street.
per the agreement, the developer is responsible for building that trail, but it crosses county property.
Do you have an
Okay.
update on that at all? We, when we made that decision, we put some requirements on it. For example, the fencing behind the Kufner property to match the existing fencing, is that going in? Do we know?
I don't know. I just
Okay.
know that Boulder County is meeting with staff
Okay.
this week and that they're going to talk about different issues and bring something back.
Is that Patrick? Okay, yeah. I have not gotten an update, and I'm feeling like it's, the alignment is quite close to those properties on here, but that may not be the real alignment.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Because we talked
There's
about,
also some waters.
moving it further east and not having it right on those properties.
Yep, and I did speak with one of the property owners at the open house, and he said that they hadn't been contacted about adding fence.
Well, it was on him, remember, the offer was made, and he said he had to check.
And
So I hope he
I
let
think there
them
may
know.
have been some confusion, but he said nothing had moved on that.
Well, I
So it's
personally
right across from
reminded him,
Discovery
so he can't get out of it that easy.
Oh,
And
Okay.
The house is like right here.
So it's narrower though than it so it doesn't go all the way.
No,
So I
that's
s-
a different part. The town owns this.
The town does own this?
Yes.
I suppose, are there anybody else, any other trails we want to add to this before we move forward? Any other comments or questions on the trail plan and the way we're going to do it? All right, perfect. So we're going to add these two. Sean, if you could send that to Allison and
Just
me.
save it and it'll be in our file.
Oh,
Saved.
fantastic.
Good deal.
Perfect. All right. Moving on then. Updates and look ahead. Allison sent out a bunch of updates to you guys earlier today, so I hope we all got a chance to take a look at those. National Trails Day, we are progressing quite well. I don't know how many of you guys saw the promotional stuff go out earlier this week. Looks really great. We've got an excellent lineup. Unfortunately, we didn't get the horses, but we do.
Right.
Well, for Trails Day, there's no
For Trails Day,
horses,
right.
but we have Hawk Quest and the
snake.
Center for Snake Conservation.
My sons are so excited.
I think that's going to be a huge hit. I think we're going to have.
No, it's going to be great. I told them I'll be 10 feet away. It'll be very nice.
A couple other additions that I just
I
want to
would
call
just
your
do spiders.
attention to is Boulder County Education and Outreach, who I work with Star Party, my Star Party, has agreed to come out and talk about trail etiquette and regional trail connectivity. So they're going to have a booth out there. Also, I emailed Denver Zoo, and I got a 4-pack of tickets, family 4-pack to raffle off,
Sweet.
which is like about $70 worth of tickets,
That's
which will
awesome.
be really fun.
Mhm.
And, it looks like we've got a really full day scheduled. Also, with the snake interest lately, we've come about with something in a very timely manner. And
She planted the snakes in the yard.
I didn't know you had pythons.
And the great thing is, kids will be able to touch them. The parents will be able to take pictures of their children with the snakes, and there'll be a snake safety demonstration, which seems to be a concern each year with rattlesnakes and things like that, and bull snakes, which are a lot of bluster. So,
Well,
it's good news.
You know what you're supposed to look for, but then you see the snake and you freeze and you forget what you're supposed to look for, right? That's
I
kind
pick
of
'em
what
up
happens to people, or at least to me.
Me too. Well, I think it's going to be our best one yet. I think we're going to have record numbers this year.
We do, the Boy Scouts are going to have a tent there, and they'll be sending out to the pack. And I think, again, like with the hawks, with the birds of prey and with the snakes, I think we're going to get a lot of interest.
Yep. And then the youth council is also doing some activities of their own and also promoting on their own, right? I believe.
They're going to be doing the snacks for us, and also they're going to be helping to hand out the passport program again this year, which is the maps and the trails and the stamps for events, and finding signs in different parks around town to learn about the different parks. So they've kind of got a few things they're going to help us with.
Can we possibly get a printed copy of what they had to have handy just in the back?
The Marshall, Colton.
The Marshall, Colton.
Has anybody even heard of that document?
I looked at it a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I still would like a packet developed of OSAC resources. So it's sort of like we have in Dropbox, so they can all be there, so nobody has to hunt for anything. And new members have easy access, and applying members have access.
Yeah, this has been discussed a lot, so hopefully.
But I think it was interesting to have them to point out
I
certain things.
Been here
and
a
then-
while, I haven't heard of that document.
Yeah.
so.
I didn't put that much credence to it just because it was so old.
Yeah, didn't realize it was there.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was
working.
still the active plan.
Operational,
Yeah,
yeah.
that it was operational, but I'm just saying more if we have, I think that's some of the things as we go and do these engagement activities, that and Chili Fest, it would be nice to know to say, yes, I know you want that trail, but here's why
Right.
it's not going, and it's in Boulder's plan, and, you know.
Well, it simplifies your process. If some
Yes.
things are already sort of never going to happen,
Right.
you may as well not waste the time.
Yep.
One of the things that I was also thinking about for National Trails Day is because of our snake presentation, we may want to be mindful about where we're setting up for Hot Quest and the snake presentation and leaving space, leaving a lot of more space, because the 2 years that I've been here, the chairs are really close to the tables, and we're going to have to probably
I think we,
make
the
some
Hawks do
space.
good on the north side of the bathrooms, and we should
Yeah.
probably put the snakes in the pavilion.
Well, they're going to be, no, we were going
Or-
to put them in the same spot,
Oh.
but they're separate. They're
Okay.
they're going to hopefully have the
They're going to,
box put away in the van.
good idea.
Then
The snakes won't be the prey
Polly
demonstration. for the
Python might
Hawks.
just disappear.
I think the other thing we do have to be mindful too, though, with both the snakes and the hawks, is we had a little bit of it last year. People do bring their dogs, is to keep their dogs a certain distance from that.
I'll have the bullhorn, and
Yeah.
someone
I need to walk
can be the host or hostess and make announcements, and especially of that nature.
And we normally just figure that out, whoever's there, easy to pick up duties and stuff. But speaking of which, I plan on being there the entire time this year, but times everyone's available to actually be at Trails Day. We don't have any more meetings before then at this point, so what do you guys think?
I will be there the whole time.
Perfect.
Yeah, we discussed, I've got a family vacation plan, so I know I'm not starting off on the
That's-
split there, but that's been planned for a while, so.
How dare you?
Yeah.
I'll try my best to be there, but it depends on the baseball tournament stuff going on.
I will say muscle is needed in the earlier hours more than breakdown, because, sorry, staff, we just leave the big cement blocks where they are if we can't move them in the afternoon, but we need them to help tie down the tents in the morning.
That was a ton of work last year. It really was. And I think it was
Jim
you,
did
me,
and
Jill,
Jim.
and Jim.
And
No,
Jim.
not Jill. Just the three of us, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
it was
I was there.
exhausting.
What are you talking about?
Were you there?
I was there the entire time. Okay.
I got there right after you guys finished. That's great.
I think, Sean, you and
terrible.
Jim had to move the.
We did.
I moved
the-
much back.
The cement.
We did. We rolled them.
Rolled them.
awful.
That's the hardest part, I
It is.
find.
Well, I mean, everything gets put behind the bathrooms, and
Yeah, so we actually put them all back last year too.
Did you guys move the cement? I was like.
We did. We moved
Yeah.
everything. We
Yep.
moved it out, moved it back.
well, because deliveries are usually done prior to the event, because the event agencies don't typically set up and place things on the weekends. The
No, I
rental
just-
agencies, yeah.
But if we can have muscle in the beginning, that's.
Yeah, what are you guys' availabilities?
I have to work, but I'll try to come for setup, and I'll see if I can get some reinforcement to come help with setup.
Cool.
But then
I'll
I have
have-
to leave after that, which is so sad, because I love it.
And I'm out of the country, actually.
Okay. Well, my wife I'll drag her out too, so
Yeah.
we'll have another set of hands.
My husband will be running the run at 8:30, so, but I can get him to help before the run goes off.
Warm up.
What
Well,
time are you
I
guys going
mean-
to start setting up?
The only other
8 a.m., I
option
think.
could be is that we don't do tents, but then you're in the
No, no,
sun.
no.
Oh, no, tents are a
We have
must.
that.
Well, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
come up with a different
Plus
option.
tents define the space and. make the
Exactly.
event.
Correct.
It's a draw. That's what people see. They come and say, "Hey, what's going on over here?" And
Well, we are going to have a very big banner towards the road that says National Trails Day to help alert
Yeah.
this year, so that's.
But
a
it
new
also pulls
addition.
people off the trails who wouldn't see that banner, which helps quite a bit.
So 8 a.m.?
8 a.m.
Okay.
8 a.m. setup. And then I'm blanking.
The run starts at 8:30 and then all the others are 9, so.
Okay.
Yep. And then the snake guy is supposed to end at 12:30, is that?
No,
12?
11:45.
11:45.
Yeah, and
11:45.
then we break down at 12, give or
Yeah.
take. I mean, in the past years, I mean, the weather is always the weather, but it's warm by that time.
Well,
People have moved off the trails a lot.
The Center for Snake Conservation representative said that many times their presentation goes far over because people are so excited about the snakes. So, but, I mean, the group can still tear down while people are petting the snakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, perfect.
That was a good score. Did you get them all of them?
Yeah.
All right.
And like you said, very timely.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions about Trails Day before we move on? All right, Rocky Mountain Greenway. We made a recommendation to the board to not support the flap grant unless the trail was rerouted. ProStack more or less echoed that recommendation, and the board agreed and is not supporting it. Sandy, can I kick it to you?
Who is this? He was supposed to be in here? John.
Sandy, you want to give an update of where things stand? I know you're probably more intimate.
I
with
am
it
very
than
intimately
everybody else
involved.
here.
I go to 3 or 4 or 5 meetings a week on this. One, I deliberately missed last meeting and had to read a sub so as not to have my presence pressure you in any which way or form. But needless to say, I am delighted with the way you responded to that challenge. We are the only community that voted no. During what happened, Boulder was supposed to be the first one on the, just as luck would have it, they were supposed to vote April 5th. Then it was on their consent agenda for boldface approval, no caveats, nothing. It was next on the Boulder County agenda, and they would just mimic whatever Boulder did, which is total approval of this sort of thing. Two of us trustees appeared at the Rocky Flat Stewardship Council meeting, along with many of the faces who presented to you, and got this dialogue going, because generally this Greenway issue was not in the forefront. It was one of these things that was just happening, right? And I actually found out about it from a memo for our town manager March 14th while I was in Hawaii with my husband, and went ballistic. I'm like, some necks were saved, I think, just because I was so many miles away. But anyway, so what's happened now? We're the only ones who have voted no. It appears that Boulder, one of their long-term city council members also happens to be chairman of the Rocky Flat Stewardship Council, and also happens to be Boulder's rep on the Greenway Commission, as is a Boulder County Commissioner. She's not chairman of Stewardship Council, but she's the county representative. And they got together in the background and devised, there's a lot of dissatisfaction among the Stewardship Council that in its entire existence of it and its predecessor, they have never been able to get Fish and Wildlife and DOE to do additional testing out on the site. So these ladies saw this as a potential opportunity to force them to do testing. If they said, we'll give you a conditional approval, but you're going to have to do more testing out there. And so they succeeded in getting the other 4 entities to likewise delay their vote. And we're just getting those votes in now. So on May 3rd, Boulder approved this with this conditional testing plan. Last night, Broomfield voted the same way. And yesterday morning, Jefferson County voted the same way. So where I've been involved in this is working with the technical group who presented to you to actually put a plan of augmentation to the recommended testing plans that have come forth, all duplicating boulders, which was not very well thought out. If you want to require a testing plan on a contaminated site, contaminated with plutonium, it's got to be extremely specific. And the scientists in the group that presented to you understand how the elaborate processes has got to go to. So we've been appearing at every council meeting we can to say, don't patently just approve this simplistic plan, think this through. The biggest failure, I think, of the plan was it was going to allow Fish and Wildlife to test itself. And Fish and Wildlife knows the location of every major contaminated spot out there. So who can trust? You know, not to imply they would do anything untoward, but you never would know, right? So if it came out clean, would it because, is it clean or is it rigged? So anyway, so we've come down heavy on that this has to be an independent third party. It's got to follow the DOE's own testing program for radioactive materials, which in fact the cleanup did not follow. They allowed the contractor Kaiser Hill to follow their own plan, which is why a lot of people very involved with the cleanup have never trusted the cleanup. So it was a 7-point plan. The plan, as put forth by Boulder, tests only the trail alignment. That's like testing the crusher fine path for plutonium and not worrying about the contiguous lands or the fact the Superfund site is just right there. And plutonium travels with rain, water, wind, burrowing animals, bike tires, everything. So anyway, there are a lot of problems. So that's what we've been aggressive on, is saying if you're going to do testing, you got to do it right. So we've had quite a bit of success actually with it. We're very successful, interestingly, at what I thought would be the hardest nut to crack, which is Jefferson County, which is the people who want to put in the parkway.
All right.
But they listened very intently, and they instructed their staff to incorporate the recommendations. So that's what we're trying to do, is if you're going to proceed with the testing protocol, that testing protocol really has to be unimpeachable, right? Otherwise, why bother? So it's taken a lot of energy. So that's where we are. And the votes will all be done. We just got a notice at 5 o'clock today that Boulder County's voting tomorrow. And we've been quite on top of this. And frankly, Boulder and Boulder County I've been very disappointed. So you would have expected more support of the sensitivities of Superior, but that has not happened.
When's Westminster's vote?
The 16th. Is that next Monday?
Yes.
Yeah. And they've really put it through thorough consideration. I suspect they're going to go ahead with this because what these folks are fearful of now is if they say no, like Superior said no, they won't be at the table for future discussion.
So that was my question to you.
Right.
I've been reading in all these newspaper articles that people are afraid if they say no, they lose their seat at the table.
Right. Well, that was a wonderful little soundbite that Boulder put out there, and it's been borrowed by everybody else. But we have been invited to the table by these commissions and councils we're appearing in front of. They've just instructed their staffs, these people will be at the table because we add tremendous value, particularly the scientists who have a lot of years of knowledge about this. So,
and I mean, to be blunt, it's a public process. So
it is a public process.
Yeah.
we're at the table.
Right.
We're a neighboring
regardless, right?
jurisdiction that will be directly
Yeah.
impacted by
Right.
this. It's,
I mean, if
Yes,
they try to exclude us, I think
and
that's
the federal legislators are
leverage.
involved, and they will insist on full inclusion. So even Fish and Wildlife has been in the paper saying, oh, we welcome the testing, and this will be transparent, and whatever. So that is remarkable from them because they've had a real cavalier attitude since they took over the refuge, that they've got carte blanche out there and they cannot be told by anybody but Fish and Wildlife what to do. So, you know, there are some the testing protocol wasn't even fully formed when we took our vote. I am actually very proud this town had the courage to say no. We want nothing to do with this. So, so we're working now with the other communities who have the testing, you know, the testing caveat, and we hope to make it as unimpeachable as possible in case it goes forward. But I do believe it's true that those communities do have a lot of built-in outs. You know, if it comes in, the testing comes in problematic, they can say, no, we're not going to support this, right? If the testing comes in clean, you know, they've still got some impact on it, but it's more likely to proceed in that case. But it does pose a real question for the town of Superior because the Highway 128 overpass is possibly going to be right on that Colton Trail, and that's why I wanted to see where that came out on 128, the one that goes west, straight west. Where does I wanted to see the alignment on that because it's shown on.
So it's that one that's already existing down there, right?
This one right here.
Yeah.
So it comes out here, yeah, it comes down here, and they would intersect somewhere.
It's almost near the Department of Energy thing, right? Like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Far over, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
west, right? Like that's. It's always hard to get right.
So I think they were talking about maybe intersecting.
Yeah,
there.
that's where I thought it was going to come out.
The green
No.
plan.
That,
So does that
the
come
Rocky
out
Mountain
of
Greenway,
Colton
that's
Trail?
the
But I've never
proposed.
ridden that all the way
Because
up
they're
to
talking about
128.
cutting through and over and then having an
Well,
underpass somewhere in here.
It comes down to that, if you put the satellite on again, then you can see how it comes into that parking lot down there.
Oh, I see.
This one
yeah.
or this one?
Right there.
The current one? Yeah.
And
Well-
if you go to the west more, can you just, it's so confusing, like where is?
I could pull up the maps from their plan if you would like me to.
Right back at you.
But that's, okay, so that's the middle. Where's the windmills?
Right below, see the diagonals.
Yep.
There are a bunch of messages that the councils and the council members and the commissioners just don't sort of seem to absorb. And the one is, we've got healthy trail systems now. So when you connect to an unhealthy trail system, which this could be, you're allowing your own trails to become contaminated. And, you know, they sort of seem to poo-poo that, and I don't poo-poo that. And the reason I don't is because we're right there. So there's heavier potential contamination right out of Rocky Flats than there is 10 miles
So there's-
further up in Boulder.
This is that parking lot,
Mhm.
and so here's one spot, and then here's.
Right.
And which one is which?
The wildlife one is the one on the right,
This
I
is the
believe.
wildlife pedestrian underpass, and this is pedestrian culvert
Oh.
underpass.
Wait, I thought one was just wildlife. They're
I
both
think
per-
the right one's the wildlife.
Well, I was just reading this legend that's
Yeah.
here. I don't know if there's something newer than this.
Yeah, I think the wildlife is not the one that links up to Colton Trail. I think the pedestrian one is.
It's only one page.
We don't really have to dog it that much. It's just that it's right there. And, you know, that was disappointing. If Boulder County wants it on their trails and they vote that way, to me, it should not have any implications on the town of Superior.
Right.
The good news is that actually Boulder, interestingly, owns land down here, and Boulder's involved right around that area.
Yes, that parking space, that,
Right.
that's.
And Boulder has committed to putting informational radioactive signs up
Oh, really?
on their side of the property. And Broomfield just committed to doing that on the Indiana potential bridge, the overpass.
Wow.
And so that's a good development. But I said, great, are you going to put a bailout lane so that people who don't want to be forced through Rocky Flats can bail out, take Indiana and 128 and, go on? Well, put a bailout, because so you hit the radioactive signs. What are you supposed to do, turn back around and go home, I guess? And not, if your intent is to go all the way up to Rocky Mountain National Park, you shouldn't be forced through Rocky Flats if you don't choose to do that. So we're pushing this idea of informed consent, have those signs up, have a bailout lane, and let people make that decision rather than forcing you through.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an uphill battle. All of us are totally exhausted. Because you would think these elected officials have thoroughly considered the implications of this. They haven't. And when you testify, we're very liberal. You gave these guys lots of time. We've got 3 minutes, and in Boulder, we each had 2 minutes. So you barely say hello, and your time's up.
Oh, wow.
And it was difficult to get anything of value stated in 2 minutes,
Oh.
so, and here we always have at least 5. So, anyway,
Well,
we'll
it'll,
see.
it'll certainly be on our radar for the foreseeable future, so we can continue to make recommendations as needed to help in the cause. The last thing on the agenda, we need to reschedule the November meeting because of elections. So right now there are 2 alternatives. I guess technically 3 alternatives. The first one is 11/2, second one is 11/17, and the third one is not to have a November meeting. My preference is to ignore that third option. So I think what would make the most sense is to give people the ability to go home and take a look at their schedules and whatnot. And I'll just ask you to reply in the same email that you provide your trails rankings with which date you would prefer, 11/2 or 11/17.
Why not the 16th? The 17th is a Thursday.
I think the voting may be lasting until that day. I think there was a,
It's ProStax meeting.
That too.
ProStax meeting. Well, whatever it was, the boardroom was,
Tied up. No.
yes.
Yeah, that is ProStax meeting day.
Yeah, the week after us, they meet.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll again put that in the email as a reminder, everybody, but just give me an answer when you reply.
I did want to give everybody a compliment. Your leadership has been appearing at all the board meetings to, put forth your positions on particular issues, to update on your activities, to comment on things relevant, for example, buffer zones in the Superior Town Center, and that's been really, really valuable. And it's really given you a nice higher profile with the board, and I've gotten great feedback from my peers on the board, so keep up the good work.
Glad it's working.
Thank you, leadership.
Keep doing that. All right, well, does anyone else have anything for the good of the order?
Do you want me to bring up the things I've been working on or not?
Oh, we've got time?
Do we? Like a minute. All right, 2 things I've been working
30
on.
seconds?
So, yeah, exactly. So brief. So there's 9.5 acres for sale up behind Discovery Park, what building up there. I inquired about the price of it, and they came back with a number, and I presented that to these guys, and I guess the next step is Allison or staff is going to bring it to
Or look at it and see if it's reasonable.
See if it's
Yeah.
reasonable, or, yeah.
Or
Is that the
sort of
one
get-
for commercial development and Discovery Office Park?
That is correct.
That is correct.
So-
Okay, good luck.
Yeah.
So.
You think you might want that for open space?
It's the first time it's come
It's-
up, and the
it's-
sign went up.
It's
and-
right across from Shan Shan.
Yeah.
It's a buffer from Town Center, and it's also a buffer to Rock Creek, so.
Can you
instead of
show
having
us
a-
on the map?
Yeah, well, Allison.
I know we'll go over, but.
Yeah.
But it actually, there's like a little pond back there, it kind of rolls, some trees back there, it's kind of a nice little space.
Well, one thing that I just want to
South, directly.
put out there, just in case, this piece of property has already gone through a very extensive
FDP,
process.
yeah.
Oh, has it?
So, calling and inquiring about a cost versus entering into a discussion with the developer is a very sensitive issue.
All right, so it is, zoom in, literally, this entire, I think it comes pretty much just this square right here. It goes around, it comes down here to the buffer area. I'll even zoom in a little more. That pond, I think, is dried up pretty much at this point. And then the developer, Town Center developer, is supposed to be coming in and around the backside of that with a road, I guess, coming down to this area. Actually, it might even show it here. No, I guess not. So basically, I'm looking at it as it would give us, a little more open space viewability on either side from Town Center. It gives us some, I don't know, leverage in some ways about how the Town Center developer tries to develop around that or through it. It's now considered a buffer that the town would potentially own. But I don't know about this, whatever's been done in the past. So.
I just think Matt Madley's going to have to weigh in on this. We've already got an approved FDP on this for the full build-out of this as office commercial. So I think it's unlikely, very unlikely, that we as a town can really even stop that. Because once an FDP's been approved, the developer has the right to go develop according to that FDP. So I've never come across this situation where, basically it would be town funds that are in competition then with that. So I think he's going to have to weigh in, and I suspect I know the answer. So I don't even, it's unusual.
Well, and I think the thought was that there was a sign that popped up that said for sale.
Said for sale.
Right.
And it was trying to figure
Right,
things out.
I saw the sign, and I was equally surprised to see a sign out there, but I suppose they can sell that right to another developer. And
He asked me specifically, is this going to be open space? I said, well, that's what our intent is, being on the open space
What did
committee.
he
He's
say?
like, he said, that's a great idea. He's like, maybe you can put the pond back in, and he told me about the road that was proposed there.
this
but
is
if
the
you-
person who has it up for sale?
Yeah, the Discovery Park people
Okay.
that own that land, and they were going to develop it, but they decided not to
Huh.
develop it, and they're selling it instead.
Well.
He said, if the town buys, you guys do whatever you want to with
How do you
it.
suggest this be addressed?
Well, we could definitely talk about this with other town staff members and see what the consensus is, but, there has been a long process and an expense associated with the plans for this area.
Yeah.
What was the price?
2.2 million,
How many acres?
9.5.
So 200K per acre, something like that.
It's pretty high.
Yeah.
It's high. I mean, that's, considering what we paid for Shan
Yeah.
Shan, it's high.
doesn't strike me as that high.
No.
Well, it's only, what is it, 9 acres?
9.5.
9.5.
9.46 to be
And
exact.
and we paid 600 for 6.5 for Shan Shan? I mean, that's, you know.
Oh, 2.2. I'm doing my math
That's
wrong.
double.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, that's not to say it's not, I mean,
yeah.
that's a
Um,
starting point. I mean, I think from our perspective,
The,
it literally was, the sign went up, it was like, oh, that's interesting. That-
Yeah.
The town
Unexpectedly
uses-
interesting,
And I
guess.
think this number has always sort of struck me as high to begin with, is about 80,000 an acre for open space. So that's 720. So this being 2.2, it certainly has a premium on it.
But that
And
was
I-
for commercial, right? I mean,
Huh?
they gave
It's
you
for
the number that they
commercial.
would
I mean,
sell
I'm
it for
sure they'd be
commercial.
willing to work with the
You'd have
town,
to-
you know, I'm sure there's
Yeah.
ways to get that number down based on,
Either way, we'll see what staff comes back with,
Yeah.
whether it's even something pursuable.
Well, I also think, Ken, you, as chair, can simply call Mr. Magley and say, hey, we're floating something here, what do you think? So,
well, it's definitely a better property than what we were considering up the street a little ways, next to the townhouses there. It's a much better property. Granted, it's a lot more expensive, but.
mhm.
Yep.
Okay, well, this will be interesting.
Yeah, and then the other thing I wanted to give a quick update, so we did look into the equestrian thing for Trails Day, and after talking with Allison, I didn't know if you were there or not, were you with Patrick when we had that meeting last Friday? It was decided that it was too much to do within a 30-day period to get all the paperwork done, but we did agree that it would be better to have a separate equestrian event that OSAC would sponsor for a half-day clinic, where we would have Jim Sawtell come in with his horses and have his daughter or whoever come and give a, you know, how do you basically ride a horse, you know, how do you saddle him up and whatever else. So we just need to find out a space. We considered several different spaces during that meeting to have it on town property as opposed to Boulder County property. And then the other thing was the date. Where would it fit into our town's schedule with all the other events that we have going on? So I think the action was that, I don't know if Patrick talked to you about this, Allison, okay, that one of you two would come back and to our committee, or me, or whoever, to give all the dates of things that we have and when this might be able to fit into the schedule as a OSAC-sponsored event.
Well, all of our events are on the webpage with the dates, so that should be.
For the whole town? Okay.
Was the thought to have it combined with an existing date, or an existing event, or
Separate.
separate event?
Separate,
Okay.
completely separate. And we would have it potentially on that land that the town bought at the Colton Trailhead across the street, the 15 acres or whatever it was. So that actually gets used as a nice parking space.
Unofficially called the Richmond 15.
I thought it was the Superior 15.
Well, we should change that, shouldn't we?
And then the other thing is that we need to talk about as a committee, how much we're willing to spend for, you know, I think 1 day liability or whatever the fee would be to cover him for that event. I think Patrick thought it'd be like $100 or so, which I think we could probably handle on our budget, but
Right.
anyway. So those are my 2 updates.
Cool.
I've been busy.
Well, when there's dates around, we can kick it back up and figure it out.
Yep.
All right. Well, in that case, I believe we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Yep, thanks. Bye.
Maybe I just bring that up to the board, because I'm not sure there's any-
Family going as well, or just? Yeah, they're going too. How old's your daughter? One? One, okay.
So nothing really.
Yeah, so you're not the only one.
Yeah, she always, you know, some better than others.
Right. That'd be nice.
I can send meetings if it's on my days off, it's just I, the medical field is floating.
Congratulations on wedding.
recruiting for?
Yes, we live, I mean, right there, so that's, I can drag them over there.
Yeah. Well, I'll go home.
Oh, and you see your house. I mean.
My little guy became a few loads.
Oh, see, this is my,
Well, you know, one thought was, you know, at least get some use, make some use of this trail.
Oh, no, but it doesn't look this way.
Oh, no. Well, I agree. And the thing is,
Done this before.
yeah, we're,
okay.
Staff is kind of limited to what I can do, but I usually show the trash cans and stuff. But I can't this is state. Like I do this.
What do you think we were talking about doing the?
It's routine at this point.
Yeah.
no, it literally is.
See.
More or less
how
what
that
they
area
are.
works.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally that, we'll do it in a half hour, get it up, and then spring down.
And,
But there's
Like,
yeah,
you actually.
and Jim, he's the
Or
chairperson of
it
the
gives
town.
something, you know, unless you go on
And
some
he and I
of
have
the
already
hikes and
talked
things
about,
with
you
Ashley,
know,
it's pretty
why
much
don't we
that stuff.
try it out, see how it goes, and maybe we can have a recurring event, and maybe propose later on, hey, maybe short term at least. Maybe some of us could consider, you know, offer, you know, subcontract out. maybe,
Just think of next year.
Yeah, no, I will.
Well, no, only more so
Also,
because they have the
make it
fun,
like a horse
like, you get to see the
therapy.
hogs.
Well, I
and
want
it's
the,
kind
yeah,
of-
no, my kids would eat that out. So.
Super crazy.
Well, the thing is that they had, you know, on the other side of McCaslin there, there's, you know, the farms right there, where people boarding their horses right there. So we would be great to have that as a place for the town to come to. I mean, Arvada has that on the outskirts of Arvada, like this area. Apparently the town, there was something that the town had already done kind of along that, but it was more on the county side before the 15 period became available. That they had discussed about making Patrick Roddick brought up in our phone conversation. The bear heat property or something. Well, I don't think so, but I mean, the town might want that in case a horse got away or something. Yeah, library rec center, but I don't, I mean, right, and Louisville is actually expanding theirs. They just had a big meeting beginning of the month about redoing and maybe expanding the rec center. So I'm like, that's the spirit of it on that, and actually, but there's also communication. Sure, Al, staff will explain it sometimes. So we, that was brought up before, so, and then there was, gosh, there's so much, I don't know.